Okay, we're recording again. Yeah.
Okay, Harold.
Okay, this passage from your father, to me, has a different dimension to it, a dimension I've been looking for. In other words, this is basically going up and down. It's very vertical. This whole system is very vertical. Horizontal would be an expansion in a moral direction, outward to others. In other words, it looks like this is mostly, and I'm not complaining, I'm just noticing that it's about spiritual development, the individual's spiritual development toward God, whether God is up or down or deep within. What about the horizontal dimension, which to me is a major theme of the Baha'i faith? But but what you just quoted is talking about that, the power that is horizontally shared and expanded. See, that's a horizontal word, expand. Mm-hmm. Anyway, no, so I was going to ask sometime before we left Nasut, where is the horizontal dimension? Or is that some other set of teachings? I can't believe that spiritual development does not involve the power to make the world better with others. Now, anyway, I don't know if you even know what I'm saying. What you quoted from your dad is definitely talking about the horizontal dimension, as I'm understanding it, the moral, spiritual power that improves the world. Mm-hmm. Sideways, not up and not down.
Well, to me, Harold, it's implicit as you're making progress that everyone around you is going to notice the difference. The way you interact with them, the way you say things to them, what you choose to say to them, how you show your love is going to be different as you evolve. But I don't want to limit in any way the expressions that takes. Abdu'l-Baha is not talking directly about that because he's allowing us the freedom to be our own unique self. But there does seem to be this hierarchy that we have access to, should we choose to expend the energy necessary to make the progress.
That's interesting to me. The fact that it's not brought up directly tells me that it's part of upward progress to be expanding in your positive influence in the world. It's understood. I mean, if you just look at Abdu'l-Baha's life, you see that. And elsewhere in the Baha'i writings, it's always talking about virtues are of no good unless they're helping somebody. Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah, so, okay, that's good enough for me for now. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else puzzling over anything or questioning something?
Carol, do you have your hand up?
Only to say that it comes back to God is self-sufficing, no matter what the circumstances. If you put your trust, your being in him, well, will he serve mankind, and he's self-sufficing. So just brought that whole notion to mind.
It's a good point. Okay, Carolyn.
Yes.
And then Joey.
This makes me remember, it's been a while back, since a good friend of mine sent me this, the prayer that Baha'u'llah translated, what was translated that Baha'u'llah wrote for Samandar, Sheikh Kazim Samandar. His father was the hand of the cause, Samandari. And it's a wonderful short prayer for decision. And it's, thou seest me, O my God, detached from all save thee, and cleaving unto thee, guide me then in all mine affairs. And I think that should be sent around to everyone, because we don't have that in the book yet, I don't think. And that to me is something that it helps us reflect upon all that we're dealing with, and especially since it gives a sense of loftiness to the station of all of our loved ones, and it helps us when we're making decisions. Do you know that prayer?
Yes, I do. I have it actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Okay, Joey, and then I'm seeing Mehri. Okay. Joey, need to hear you. There we go.
When I read the first 3 lines of this, I see as Baha'is, we must contact the power, which is the vertical in reaching up, but then, and the power will do the work. And that's for me, the horizontal, the spreading out of the word of the faith. So I see both in what your dad has written.
Okay, I agree with that. Mary, what were you going to say?
You know, when I was reading a few times that poem from your dad, your father, just one thing came to my mind. Be patient under all conditions and put all your trust and confidence in God. I think we had this one, but I forgot it was from Bob or Baha'u'llah. But I remember this sentence, and that came to my mind because everything, if we put in the hands of them, doesn't matter which way it goes up and down, okay? But in all condition, happiness or sadness.
Which is what Abdul Baha was just describing in the Assured
Yes.
Soul.
Yeah.
Eva, you had a point.
I have to unmute you, Eva.
There we are.
To me, these are the moments that we do things that we thought we'll never do. Like sometimes you get a power that it's not yours.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was reading your dad's, this is what I was thinking. Like I had some couple of experiences that it wasn't me doing things.
Mm. So to that extent, you're probably becoming a channel for the power that my father's talking about and Abdul Baha would describe as divine in nature.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
Anybody
You
else?
just have to be open.
It's a critically important word, that.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Anybody else?
Reading's very intense.
Okay, so let's charge on and see if we can make any sense of the next 5 levels or 6 levels. Holy jeez. You thought it was tough so far. Abdul Baha names the 5th stage of the soul's development the accepting soul. I'll pull that back up here so we can, oh, sorry, what happened here? And we're on number 15 now. Let's see who's available. I guess Joey is ready to do this. Hopefully.
I have my furnace going on right now, so you should probably go to somebody else.
Oh, okay. I'll come back in a minute then. Danielle, how about you for number 15?
And when his will has faded away and vanished in the will of the true God, and his will has become identical to his will, and his pleasure is the same as his pleasure, and the veils have been lifted, the coverings have disappeared, and idolatry, shirk, have vanished from the reality of his heart. Then does there appear in the soul the sign of acceptance. Then, on account of its acceptance of the decree of its creator and its submission to the command of its maker, it is known as an accepting soul. Abdul Baha.
Well, we could probably spend some quality time trying to decipher the difference between the accepted soul and the accepting soul. But we don't have that luxury tonight, unfortunately. Now notice at this stage, it is the soul which is the one accepting the will of its creator. It is then addressed by the concourse on high, which praises it for its progress and assures it that it is now accepted by God. Now, Joey, are you able to speak now? Not yet, okay. How about you, Jack? This is number 16. It's a bit long, but.
Number 16, okay. Insofar as all-encompassing blessings and mercy reach it, bounties and favors encompass it. The covering of grace and beneficence enclose it, and God clothes it in the robe of obedience and his favor. The Supreme Concourse addresses it, saying, well is it with thee in that thou hast traversed the path, and covered the way until thou didst enter into the spring of faithfulness and didst obtain the clear waters of submission and contentment, Reza. Thou hast left behind thy passions and accepted the decree of thy Lord. Thou hast expended what is thine and sacrificed thy spirit, thy heart, and thine inner self upon the path to thy Lord. This then is thy consolation. Thus hast thou attained unto this most exalted station and this most glorious company. Thou hast become accepted, Marzia, and approved in the sight of God thy Lord, and hast sought the shelter of the bounty of thy Lord, trembling with joy and happiness at his bounty and beneficence. Verily, his grace towards his sincere servants is mighty. Actually, Marzia is a lady's name, a woman's name in Persian, right? Marzia Gale.
It certainly is. Okay. Almost makes you want to cry when you think about being in that state. If you visualize for yourself being in that state, you imagine what it would feel like. Okay, so let's move on to the accepted soul. Now that's 4F on our chart. It's the second last one in Nasut. We're still in Nasut.
Wow.
Okay. Thus the soul has risen to the sixth stage, the accepted soul. Now God is the one accepting, actively accepting. Okay, so Bob, are you still on, Bob LeBlanc?
Bob may have left his computer for a minute. He's just got his photo up.
Okay, fine. Let's see here. How about Zilda? I saw your.
And on account of its rising by means of its acceptance into the heights of being accepted by God, its Lord, and its being approved in its state of nothingness by its Creator, it is known as the accepted soul.
So that word nothingness is important in terms of the seven valleys. So once you've risen to that stage, then you're accepted by God. But we're going to go beyond that. So there are more valleys. So we'll jump to the next stage. See, we're not being able to say very much about these stages. There isn't any secondary literature to speak of. So we're having to rely on Abdu'l-Baha exclusively now. In the seventh stage, the perfect soul, the wisdom of eternity, begins to gush forth from it. Having attained the station of Fana, which is known in Baha'u'llah's Seven Valleys as the Valley of True Poverty and Absolute Nothingness, it becomes the focal point of inspiration and the dawning place for the radiance of the lights of this effulgence. So it goes into active mode here in every situation that it encounters in its life. So this is the expansion that we're talking about, Harold. So actually, why don't you read this one, number 18.
And when it, the soul, soared on the wings of holiness into the atmosphere of this paradise and tasted of the sweetness of the stations of reunion in the gardens of heaven, these illumined and lofty stations were collected within it, the soul, and it arose to this elevated and spiritual degree, and there gushed forth from the lofty heights of its reality the springs of the wisdom of eternity. It became the focal point of inspiration and the dawning place for the radiance of the lights of this effulgence, and became content with the remembrance of God, the gracious sovereign. It has become accepting of his decree and accepted in nothingness at his gate. Therefore, it is known as the perfect soul, on account of its being characterized by these spiritual and divine perfections and being comprised of these essential and godly attributes.
So this is an interesting statement. It has become accepting of his decree and accepted in nothingness at his gate. So it's doing something active and passive at the same time. And it would be interesting to meditate on the life of Abdu'l-Baha as an exemplar of that particular thing. Okay, so now we're at finally, we're going to leave the world of Nasut and enter the world of Malakut, the kingdom of God, which brings us to the angelic soul. In its eighth stage, the soul is at long last ready to enter the second of the five realms of God in the Baha'i faith, the kingdom of God, known by its Arabic term Malakut. Okay, so I'm wondering about Hangame. Are you up for number 19?
For sure. Then is it the soul worthy and prepared for entry into the heaven of the kingdom of God, Malakut, which is the paradise of the righteous and the refuge of the free, whose faces have been illumined by the glad tidings of God. In it appears the beauty of the All-Merciful and the sign of the Beneficent One. To these stations do his words, may his grandeur be magnified, refer. O thou assured soul, return to thy Lord, accepting and accepted. Enter among my servants, enter my paradise. For the garden of refuge, the meads of splendor, the exalted heaven, and the all-high paradise are the pastures of the kingdom of God. In this day, the doors of this kingdom are open. Its land stretches out. Its lights shine forth. Its fruits ripen. Its blossoms open out. Its streams flow. Its oceans billow. Its springs gush forth. Its breezes are gentle. Its surface is delicate. Its doves sing out. Its mouths smile. Its sorrows are made joyous. Its lightnings flash. Its dawnings are filled with light. Its birds warble. Its palaces are adorned, and its joys draw near. Therefore, rise and with the loudest voice proclaim, hasten, O ye lovers, to the dawning place of this most ancient light that shines forth and glistens, and head towards this lofty and sublime refuge. Abdul Baha.
That could not be written by somebody who hadn't lived that, who hadn't seen life from that perspective. One of the things we need to remind ourselves is as you progress up these levels or into higher realms of God, the level of reality is intensified.
Mark, Leslie has a comment.
Yes, please, go ahead.
I'm wondering at what point the soul is detached from reality here. Like this almost looks like we're moving out of this world and into another world. And do we really think that we could achieve this in this world? Do you know what I mean? I mean, would almost everyone except Abdul Baha have to achieve it in the next world, Malakut?
You're raising a very interesting point that Sri Aurobindo is going to have a lot to say about, actually. But I do remember that Baha'u'llah has spoken in more than one place about you reaching a stage where you're effectively in paradise while you're still alive walking around on the planet. Sorry, I can't be more specific at the moment. I didn't think to look that up. But
Oh, Mark, I'm dying to comment on this.
oh, please go ahead. Yeah.
You know, I have just the opposite reaction in a way. All of this is possible in this world. In fact, we get glimmerings of this. For example, I visited a campus in Korea that was beautiful. And later on, I found out they were trying to make the campus look like the pure land of the Western paradise.
Oh, nice.
And in other words, they did it. When we create beauty, how about Mount Carmel, for example?
Mm.
That is a glimpse of heaven on earth. You know, in other words, all of these things happen in this world to some degree. And so this satisfies me about my horizontal complaint earlier. All of that is sort of like, you know, saying, wow, that higher level is going to trickle down, or we're going to reach up to it from this world. I don't see the boundary between Nasut and Malakut as very thick.
No.
The whole Baha'i faith is trying to make it a very thin veil. So we get glimpses of heaven while we're here. And what did Jesus say? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So I don't know. It looks like all of the teachings of the Baha'i faith are trying to build this world so that it looks like that world.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't see them as so detached from one another.
So you're thinking the soul moves around, like if you're saying glimpse, we're not going to be staying in that state for the rest of your life once you get there.
No, there's interaction between what goes on up there and what goes up down here. It's all one reality. isn't that the point of studying these things? We'll understand them much better when we're, free of our bodies. But in the meantime, glimpses, are what revelation is for, and the work to implement those glimpses. So finally, I found that quote just full of horizontal imagery, some of which we see here. It's called art and creativity and science and medicine and all kinds of good things.
Mark, Jack has a comment.
Oh, go ahead, Jack.
Okay, well, yes, we do get glimpses, but I want to go back to Leslie's comment, and I think it's a pertinent one. But before I make that comment, I want to say that, Mark, what's occurred to me as we're reading these things, is these are statements about Abdu'l-Baha himself, because we know as believers that he's our perfect exemplar, and we know that he's been to every station that he's describing.
Absolutely.
So this is as much about the station of Abdu'l-Baha that he's, as you pointed out, we don't have descriptions like this anywhere else. And that says as much about who Abdu'l-Baha is as the stations of the soul. Now, I think Leslie's got a point. My feeling on hearing this was he's talking about life after death. Now, we may experience that temporarily in mystical states, but you are not going to live in this state forever in this world. Nobody does. Nobody does. Otherwise, what's a heaven for? That's my feeling. I mean, the description of that malakut, and of course, as Mehri will tell you, the friends refer to heaven as the Malakute Abha, the kingdom of Abha. That's heaven. That's the next world. So I think Leslie's point is well made, that I think some of this at least refers to the future life, to so-called paradise or heaven. And I don't deny, Harold, that we can get a few little glimpses here and there. I've had those myself, but in Nasut, they don't. Do you think, Mark, they're going to become permanent fixtures of our consciousness?
It's in Malakut. It's not in Nasut.
Oh, I know. Okay, it's in Malakut.
So if you want to access it, you have to rise to that level yourself.
Yeah, but we're in Nasut still, right?
Yes, but we're also in Malakut. We visit it every day.
I'd like to say something.
Yes, please go ahead, David.
It's my feeling or my understanding that the revelation of both the Bab and Baha'u'llah are such that heaven and earth are joined, come together. And the reality of heaven and earth joined together must be, I use that word deliberately, must be reflected in this world, in the physical world. Because the physical world, from a human point of view, has to be transformed. And all that Abdu'l-Baha has been saying here will cause us ourselves not only to be transformed ourselves, but it will transform the universe as the way we see it.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to William Blake, he himself said, at the end of days, the veil will be taken away, and we will see the world or the universe as it is for the first time, as it really is. So I think that the whole thing of a paradise on earth is very much to be realized. If not within the time dispensation of Baha'u'llah, then later on in the whole cycle. But I think so. And furthermore, that the closer we get ourselves in our true being to the spiritual reality, the more will we discover what we've been blind to with both regard to ourselves and the universe. So I think it's very, very important that we see that what Allah has been talking about at this level and the physical world come together. I mean, look, the physical world, in my opinion, is not just Maya. It's not, because there's a reason for it for being what it is, for being here with ourselves. So I think that the universe has been a teacher too, just like nature has been for the indigenous peoples. So the universe teaches us. We don't teach it, it teaches us. We learn things, we discover things, but the universe has a way of throwing things back at us, and we're, if we're in a way a reflection of the universe is, is a reflection of us, so that, there's a relationship between ourselves and the creation. So I think we have to really try to understand how different we will be in the physical world will be as we get deeper in collectively to the world order of Baha'u'llah.
Well, this is fascinating that this subject has come up, because it's really highlighting for me the key reason that I want to talk about Sri Aurobindo, because his main theme is that everything that's gone by the name of yoga up until almost the present day has been to get away from this world, rise to a certain level so that you can be free of suffering, etc. Aurobindo feels that that's an incomplete realization, that really we're here in order to be able to take whatever divine light we're able to access and bring it down into physical reality. Shine that light on what's going on around us and raise its consciousness, if you like. So his whole form of yoga, integral yoga, is intended to transform physical reality, his own body, but everything around us as well. And so, I mean, he wrote a great deal about this, and I think it's worth our while taking a look at it.
That's going to be interesting.
Carolyn.
Mark, I don't think that's very different than the Bob's ethic. We're supposed to refine everything. We're supposed to refine ourselves. We're supposed to refine the world. We're supposed to refine all relationships and all institutions. And when we do that, we'll be making heaven on earth.
Absolutely. But does he talk about the mechanics of it?
The Bion, I don't have a copy of the Bion. I'm sure there's quite a bit in there. I think, anyway, I got what I just said from The Gate of the Heart, Nader Saidi's summary. But the ethic of the Bab is just incredible. Talk about, it's like a categorical imperative to the 100th power, because it's saying we're ethically and morally responsible for everything. That means we're to beautify everything. We're to improve everything.
Mhm.
This means the earth. And so the images of heaven and the beautification possibilities of earth are not that far apart. We'll see that the more humanity matures. Yeah, so if Aurobindo is saying that, that's interesting. That will help the eastern part of the world get on the bandwagon of beautifying the earth.
Mark,
Okay.
Carol has her
Carolyn
hand
was
up.
next. Yeah,
Carol and Carolyn as well, and Jack.
Okay. Carolyn first.
Did you mute? We need to be muted.
Actually, this takes us back to fauna.
Yes.
Because it's the annihilation and the dissolution of ourself, and it's attainment and it's perfection at the same time. So it says that in this special dictionary, it is to die before one dies, which says it all. And then as far as the later Sufis were concerned, he said, when your creation, O God, sees me, it will say, we have seen you, and you, O God, will be that, and I shall not be there at all. So it works up to the baka, which is the threshold of the baka, or the perpetual being in relation to God, or eternal life. So it encompasses that whole station from one to the next, and it's both. And we die within ourselves and we're born again, as the Christians believe. It's all very fascinating.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Okay, Jack, you had a point?
And Carol as well, Mark.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Sorry,
Carol
she's had her
first?
hand up for a while.
Okay.
Sorry, Jack.
Okay. Jack can go forward.
No, ladies first.
Oh,
I got myself muted, Jack. It's yours.
Okay. Well, here we go. I'm applauding everything Mark is doing, what David said about bringing heaven on earth, what Harold said. But don't forget this. And I don't deny that there are people who attain this state in this world. I mean, if you read some of the other tablets in the Call of the Divine Beloved, Mark, I sent you what caught my attention there. Baha'u'llah is talking about these very, very exalted states of the soul, and you wonder who he's talking about. People that hide their own station. Anyway, I won't go into that, but let's remember this. There are worlds, I'm going to speak metaphorically, above us and beyond us. We are still in the womb world, friends. We haven't been born out of this world yet. Although we strive to do so while we're here, until we leave this world, we are not, in a sense, born again. We cannot be. And it's in the same way that the child, the fetus, cannot experience this world until it comes here, we cannot experience. I mean, I'm stating my opinion here. Except in these fleeting, wonderful moments. It doesn't mean we shouldn't strive. It doesn't mean that there aren't certain souls that attain these things, but there are, it seems to me, stages and limitations built into creation by God himself. And until we follow that timetable, the timetable of life and death and the life beyond, we can't experience these things in the fullest sense of the word.
I disagree. I really do.
In the sense that, okay, that's fine. You can disagree with me if you like. I don't
But
have.
I mean, I guess what I'm doing with this course, Jack,
as permanent states. That's what I mean, Mark. As permanent states.
I'm not willing to throw limits on things that I don't understand. That's really the point of this whole course. I think our imaginations have been limited up until this point. And it's partly because we've never had anybody like Abdu'l-Baha describe these stations that are available to us. To me, these are groundbreaking. So to me, I'm very pleased to be shucking off these limitations, to think bigger, more perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking more permanent too.
Okay.
So, I don't know, I guess I'm an optimist, but
No,
that's what's
great.
driving me.
That's great. I'm with you 100% on that.
Mark, so there's Carol and Leslie and Alan.
Okay.
Is that
Let's do
everyone?
them in that order.
Okay. Carol, your turn.
I quite agree that, anyway, just my opinion again, because of the fact that you're no longer looking with your mortal eyes, you're no longer hearing with your mortal ears, you're speaking with a spiritual tongue. And like Mark was saying, like when you give of yourself to others in the spiritual way, it's a different it opens the other person's spiritual eyes, the other person's spiritual ears. Okay. And when you see people that have have risen from having had those spiritual states transcend and be recorded, like Durham says, like you have this angel next to you taking notes. You know, you really understand that there is a thing such as sainthood, and there is such a thing as stations, and you know, however we pray fast, it's meant to be, because we are, you know, we are a creation of God, so we have to have the fear of God, if nothing else. But I agree that, you know, you have that spiritual sense of being in this state, however you can vary between stages, you have that in this world, because it's been ordained from you from the beginning.
I agree that we have access to these, and but I question living in that state without being an ascetic, which we are not supposed to be.
Right. So maybe that's one of the possibilities that Baha'i is introducing to the world, that it is possible to live that way in the world without retiring from it.
Yeah, it is. Didn't Abdu'l-Baha say, you know, be like me? He's, you know, he is the, you know, the exemplar in the faith. Well, and center to come. Right. But I mean, he said, be like me.
Of course.
So that striving, I think this is what we're supposed to be doing. And heaven is also, you know, there are different meanings to the word heaven, as you all know. And there's also that point where heaven is within us as well. What we're all discussing here actually ties in with unity. Unity is very, very deep. It's very wide. And there is much to discover with regard to unity in its many layers. So, well, an example of that is, you mentioned it yourself, Mark, you know, like the world center itself. And so, no, I think that really in that heaven and in that earth, which are to be joined together, is also unity. Unity, as you know, has many, many meanings, and it's very, very deep.
Okay, let's just go to Alan for the last comment before we start chugging on through the last 5 pages of material.
Thank you, Mark. I had a bit of a conversation with my mom years ago when she was asking about Baha'i faith. And I said that we would be creating the kingdom of God on earth. And she said to me, that's not going to be fun. and she said, it sounds pretty boring to me. And what I'd like to point out, though, is that we are in the beginning stages of a revelation that's going to last how many thousand years? And don't we think that there will be progress? And don't we think that we will be through this horrible stage of coming together, at least on a planetary basis, relatively quickly, given the problems that we are facing? If we don't turn things around, we won't have to worry about these questions. But if we do turn them around, it's going to happen relatively quickly. It'll happen, it's certainly, from my perspective, it has to happen during this century, or else we won't be here at all. Which means that we have how many thousands of years to grow spiritually with a focus on the spiritual? Won't we, over those thousands of years, become exactly what Abdu'l-Baha has said? And won't it be fun and exciting to do so?
Yeah. Hear, hear. Okay, so let's hear some more about what he's got to say, having lived some of these experiences himself. I'm just going back over my list. I don't think Bob's had a chance to read.
Okay.
So let's pull this up. I'll bring up number 20 here.
All
it's
right.
a bit of a long one, so take your time, don't rush.
Okay. The soul, when it has entered this exalted heaven, this eternal paradise, has sought the dawn of this most luminous day, has entered this most pleasant, most pure place, has taken on perfections, acquired the illumination of the essence of names and attributes, has drunk from this cup tempered at the camphor fountain, has roamed throughout these lands, plunged into the depths of these seas, and has been guided to this fire, kindled and aflame on the Paran of love, confirms in its reality the profession of divine unity, and establishes in its essence the sign of detachment. It attains to everlasting life and eternal living. It takes pleasure from delights, the like of which no eye has seen, nor any ear heard. It drinks from the clear springs which flow from the right hand of the throne of reality, and tastes of the fruit of the tree growing in the midst of paradise, stirred by the breezes coming from the direction of the beauteous one, through which the hearts of those who believe in the divine unity have been revived, and the leaves on the branches of the hearts of the sincere ones have been set in motion. It attains unto the seat of eternal life in the shadow of the countenance of its most exalted Lord, such that not the slightest trace of the ephemeral should be hidden within it, nor the misfortune of evanescence or annihilation befall it. Just as he hath said, and his word is the truth, all that are thereon upon the earth shall perish, and there remaineth but the countenance of thy Lord, full of glory and honor. Abdu'l-Baha.
So that's the world of Malakut that we live up against, beside, if you like. That's why I spent so much time with Ibn Arabi talking about the imaginal realm, because that's his word for Malakut. That's where he had all those experiences with Kisra, for instance. So let's charge on. We're going to enter the realm of command, or Jabarut. This is the third realm. So in the ninth and final stage available to mortals, the so-called soul of the dominion comes to reside in the third of the 5 realms of God in the faith, the realm of command, also known by its Arabic name, Jabarut. Now how about Sylvie for number 21? Sorry, these are all long, but I don't want us to miss anything that he is saying about these things.
And when the soul hath unfolded the wings of the spirit, been attracted by the joy of God, hath soared to the most exalted horizon, hath sought the most glorious companion, it doth ascend to the divine station of Jabarut, the realm of command, and is assisted by an overwhelming and all-conquering power, and by the intricate and ancient secret, and by the noble and mighty mystery. It becomes aware of the secrets of hidden and invisible realities, which consumes and envy the hearts of the mystic knowers. It is imprinted by the rays shining forth from the sun of truth and by its effects, and comes to resemble its appearance and its light in every state and condition. It ascends to a station that God hath made to be far above the understanding of the minds of men. For this station is created out of the elements of power, strength, might, authority, sovereignty, omnipotence, protection, and freedom, and nothing that has limitations or pluralities has any resemblance to it. On the contrary, it is the very essence of unity, the substance of singleness and abstraction, the light of lights, the mystery of mysteries, the furthermost tree, the exalted rank, the all highest station, the Masjid al-Aqsa, the remotest mosque, and the ultimate goal in the world of creation, even though perfections have no beginning nor end to them and are beyond all limitations. Well is it with the one who has entered this holy, noble, and mighty station.
So I think we've had occasion to talk about Thomas Breakwell having attained this station briefly in his short life. So apparently, Leslie, it is possible to have access, however momentary, to this particular level. And you're probably just looking in on it rather than participating fully. But we do get to have access to it. So, Abdu'l-Baha ends his commentary on the Surah of Rum with an explanation of the final stage of soul, the divine soul, which is not open to human beings, is the source of all creation. It resides in the fourth of the 5 realms of God, also known by its Arabic name, Lahut. So let's talk about the divine soul. Let's see who we've got left. How about Linda O'Neill? Did you read about this number 22 for us?
And as for the divine soul, it consists of the universal reality, which brings together all of the divine realities of the realm of primal manifestation, and the eternal secrets, the outer aspect of which is the ancient light, and the inner aspect is the most mighty and sublime mystery, the primal point, from which appear all things, and to which they revert, from which they originate, and to which they return. Thus it is the primal oneness in its essence, and the derived oneness in its attributes. And from it there appears plurality through manifestation, is manifested plurality and illumination, and it becomes divided, dispersed, and manifold, and radiates. And so it is the center of the circle of existence through the manifestation of there is no God but God.
Or you could do a course just on that one quotation. There is so much material built into that, it's not even funny. Oy, oy, oy. So he has another paragraph that he explains a little bit more about it. How about Marie? Do you read 23? Have we
I was
lost
just
Oh, she's just,
unmuting
there you
there we
myself.
are.
go.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
I was muted and then I was unmuted and then I was muted again. This soul consists of the reality of the sanctified persons and true thrones. The horsemen of human intelligence can never gallop in this pasture, nor can the birds of the minds of creatures travel in this land. Only the sincere ones among them receive the great bounty of the rays of this most luminous light in their haste and progress towards the state of nothingness. At the gate of the mighty king, wretched and condemned are the people who imagine that they have attained unto their highest station when they have not even circled around their inner sanctuary. How can the gnats of ephemeral being vie with the phoenix of the dawning place of eternity? Why is it that for a putrid, salty, bitter drop, they reject the sweet, clear, and billowing sea? Abdu'l-Baha commentary.
So his comment about wretched and condemned are the people who imagine that they have attained unto their highest station is a swipe, if you like, at the Sufis who believed that they could become one with the essence of God. So they had vain imaginings, if you like, that needed to be shown for what they were. That it's just not possible to pass beyond Jabarut, which is a pretty exalted state, but it's not unifying yourself with God. So he's being quite clear about that. So Abdu'l-Baha emphasizes the size of the gap that exists between the uppermost reaches of the human soul and the realm of the manifestations by comparing it to the gap between the vegetative and the animal souls, or the animal and the human souls. All right, so let's see.
Mark, Jack has a comment.
Okay, fair enough.
You know how, friends, I just had one of these moments, where something hits you, and it's hard to explain in words, but I realized, we should all know this, right? But somehow these things seem to have different levels. How the plurality, Mark, comes from manifestation. If there's no manifestation, the oneness of God before manifestation, that's the oneness. Because God is unmanifest in that state. And God is alone in that state. Even the prophets don't go there. So when we read number 22, Mark, it somehow hit me, oh my gosh, well, of course, the diversity, the plurality in creation becomes possible through manifestation. And if it weren't for manifestation, there would be no diversity and no plurality in creation. So that's necessary for us, but that's not where God dwells in Lahut. He's alone. And, Baha'u'llah says even the manifestations don't have access to that. So hard to explain the impact that it had on me in words, but that was it. It's a simple concept, but it struck me rather forcibly that that all the plurality in the world, the diversity, the beauty, and so on and so forth, that comes from the phenomenon of manifestation.
Which underscores the fact that it's divine in nature.
Absolutely.
And we're crazy to think that we should get rid of it in order to make a perfect world. Right? We have no business throwing away anything. It's all been given to us by God. Takes a lot of growth on our part to accept some of it, though.
Well, isn't that the greatest bounty of all, that there is manifestation?
Absolutely. Let me see here. I was going to ask Jennifer if she would read number 23. Just hang on a second. Let me bring up 23.
24, I think, isn't it?
Oh, did we? Ah, yes. Sorry. Yeah.
Know thou therefore that in the variety of their stages, degrees, and stations, souls are bound by this condition, that none of them are able to transgress their limits or station. No bird is able to fly above the upper limit of its flight. And if matters are thus among these created, contingent, physical beings, which share pertinent and similar aspects, then how much more so between the stations of contingent reality and those of the realities of primal manifestation, which the human intellect fails to understand. Souls become confused in trying to know. Tongues are powerless to explain, and the wings of the birds of hearts and minds are too feeble to fly to the heights of elucidating it. Abdu'l-Baha.
So once again, Abdu'l-Baha returns to a point he will make in his future writings. No matter how many stages of the soul human beings progress through, we will forever continue to do nothing but read the book of our own souls. Contrary to the expectations of many mystics of the past, we can never become God. And let me see here. How about Bonnie? Number 25. Oops, I'll have to scroll a bit.
To whatever extent they who seek to rise to the highest stations of mystic knowledge may ascend, or to whatever high station in the degrees of certitude that they who hold fast to the divine unity may climb, they are only reading the letters of the book of their souls, only attaining the sign that is refulgent, deposited, incorporated, and concealed within the realities of their own inner being, and only revolving around the centers of the circles of their own essential natures. And as for the stages that are above their worlds and beyond their attainment, they are not able to seek information about them, nor to understand them.
Isn't it interesting that he's saying that we cannot understand or seek information about the worlds that are above us? And yet, he's just laid out all these different levels of the soul for us that seem so rarefied to us at the moment that we can't even conceive of ever living in them. I don't think he'd be sharing that with us if there was no possibility of us getting to that place ourselves. So he's thrown down the gauntlet to us. Here you go, people. Let's see what you can make of these. So that's the upper end of what he describes for us in the Surah of Rum. So let's take a look at how all these stages of the soul relate to the Surah of Rum. Now, this was a question that Durham had last time, and I sent out this quotation from Abdu'l-Baha as an explanation of it. It comes right at the very end of the section. But let's see if we can understand it this time around. I'm going to ask Harold to read this one. Another long one.
This is the last
Okay.
class.
Yeah.
That was Harold, not Carol. Sorry.
Sorry, Carol.
Okay. Not reading number 26. Then understand what he, the Prophet Muhammad, glorified be he, hath said. The Byzantines were overthrown. That is to say, the soul has overthrown and caused to diminish and fade away the commanding soul, through which the misfortune of the thunderbolts that fell upon it from the realm of the kingdom, and the flaming fire that entered upon it from the repositories of might and command. Then was it aided by the hosts of guidance and victory, and assisted by the angels of spirit and righteousness. It was awakened from its slumber and its negligence, and it ended its immersion, its decline and abasement, and bore witness to its fall and lowly condition. Then it called to mind its condition, refined its vision, purified its sight until it came to know its state, and what it was that veiled it and hindered it, and became a cause of its remoteness, denial, negligence, and inebriation. Then it grasped hold of the hem of grace and mercy, and supplicated God and took refuge in his presence, until it ascended and was saved from that station and stage, and entered the loftiest station. Thus was it transformed, and its stations and degrees. Thus was it transformed in its stations and degrees, and was victorious over and over again, until it went back to its origin and returned to its center, and was clothed in the robe of its perfection, and entered the shadow of its Lord, the seat of truth, in the presence of the mighty King. Well, that's the whole circle. Oh my goodness.
That's exactly right.
The up and down of it all. Or the roundabout of it all.
That's what we're supposed to be doing. So there's much to linger over in this commentary that we simply do not have time to address. For example, Abdu'l-Baha goes on so far as to sketch out 10 further topics he would have liked to have explained, but only if his audience had been sufficiently advanced. However, he understood that at the time he was writing, quote, souls are not able, nor do they have the capacity to hear it and understand it, unquote. For this reason, he chose to remain silent about such advanced mysteries. Despite this reticence, he encourages us to strive with all our might to prepare ourselves for our future entry into these majestic realms. Okay, Carol, let's have you do this one, number 27.
I was just going to have, is it okay? This is the last class. I haven't heard Ava read, and I monopolize too much, even as I speak. So let's
okay.
Ava.
All right, Eva, how about you?
You'll have to unmute yourself, Eva. There we go.
Open by the power of your Lord all of the doors that have been shut in your face, so that you may be aware of the hidden and concealed mysteries of God. May witness and reveal the preserved and guarded secret. May travel in that spacious and mighty kingdom, plunge unto that swelling and billowing ocean sea, and that might and rolling ocean, gleaned from the bright stars of light by the grace of the King of Manifestation.
All of the doors that have been shut in your face, so that you may be aware of the hidden and concealed mysteries of God, which he's just shared with us. Should we choose to take his advice, the doors of our perception would be opened wide. Maybe Nina could read this last one.
Nina, you need to unmute yourself. There we go.
By the Lord of forgiveness and the well-known beauty of gratitude, were one of the sincere ones to turn to God in this most great day and see with the purest vision, he would understand all of the realities and meanings of every word of the verses of God, the eternal protector. Nay, indeed, every letter and every dot, for realities and meanings in their entirely flow forth within their inner aspects, and streams burst forth from them, an ocean billow within them. Well is it with those who attain thereunto. Abdul Baha.
I'm going to leave the final word up to Abdul Baha. That's the end of the course, folks. Part 1 is done. Except for our chance to talk about all this stuff that I've thrown at you over the last 3 months. So let's stop sharing.
Carolyn's got her hand up, Mark.
Yes, go ahead, Carolyn.
You know, this reading 27 especially addresses and practically paraphrases Abdul Baha on the level of the community in the beautiful letter from the Universal House of Justice, 25th of November, just a couple months ago, when they write in the second paragraph, at the national, regional, and cluster levels, we look to communities of proven strengths to help those in which less experience has accrued. In this year-long effort, every community must draw on whatever untapped potential it may possess and seek to overcome any obstacles that are impeding its growth, thereby preparing it for the demands to come. It goes on, but it mentions village and neighborhood, and I think that's fantastic. We can apply it in to our communities, this very same principle of looking towards our strengths and not towards our weakness.
Yeah, that's, Mark, that's an excellent point. Thank you, Carolyn, because that points out that the process, a spiritual process that on the arc of ascent for the individual is virtually the same one that works at the community level.
Yes.
So there's a real connection with the spiritual dimension in the practical world of the process of community building. They're not, one's not just an esoteric thing that's up there in airy fairyland, but it also applies in the work that we're doing to build communities. So it's the same process you're saying, Carolyn, right?
Yes. In fact, at the end of that paragraph, Jack, it says, each element of the plans connecting and multiplying the community's power in the field of action. So that puts their finger on it directly, what we're talking about, power. Yeah, it's inspirational, put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've got to take my hat off to Mark because I know how much preparation. Oh my gosh. And you know, all of this for free. So many people are charging in the world now, even in the Baha'i community, for workshops on this and workshops on that, $50. I saw one for $100 the other day. So Mark, thank you so much. It's a tremendous work and labor you've done.
Yes, thank
Mark,
you.
Mary has her.
Can I say something?
Sure.
You know, Jack, for treating soul and teaching soul is priceless. Priceless. Mark, thank you. Thank you. Because the things we are learning from Mark is priceless.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Mark, what you've done, I've referred to this in another way. My correspondence with you, but you know, you have shown yourself to be a very courageous man, and this takes an awful lot of gumption, you know, and chutzpah. And so I want to thank you very, very much. I couldn't thank you enough for this.
Chutzpah, okay. Ask Carol, he knows what it means.
Sherry knows what it means too.
Yep. Good word.
Chutzpah.
Well, I'm hoping to continue this at some point in the spring.
Okay.
We're looking forward
If
to
we have a
Sri
spring.
Aurobindo. Yep. We're gonna do. I'm Wilbur. not quite sure, but probably 6 sessions on Aurobindo and 6 on Wilbur. But I haven't written a word of it yet, so it's gestating at this point. So I've got
So
ideas.
our feeble brains have a little time to recover?
Yes, they do.
Good question.
But we'll see you all next week, won't we, for our little discussion? Well, if people want to. I mean, that's entirely optional. It's not part of the course specifically, but if you want to hash out some ideas or dig into something, feel free to come by and we'll talk about it. It might be a short time, it might be the whole time. I don't know.
Okay.
Let's just see how it goes.
And meanwhile, as homework, we all have to study the stages of the soul and see if we can, make some progress.
Well, be gentle on yourself, though.
I'm interested that years ago, Mark, you started with Ken Wilber.
Yes, I did.
And then you moved away from him and we
Yes, I
did
did.
other things. And it's interesting that you're coming back to him again.
Yeah. Oh, I
don't
don't think he ever moved away.
Yeah, he
Well,
did. He did.
I got upset with him for a while,
Yeah.
but
This was
I've
years
forgiven
and
him.
years ago. Mark has been doing these courses for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, something like
More
that.
than that, actually. Yeah.
When was the Ken Wilber course, Mark? How long ago was that?
I think it was 2004.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember it well, yeah.
But
16
he's
years
written
ago.
another major book since then. So
And his thinking has evolved as well, hasn't it?
yes, it has. It's filled in. He's had many people help him to flesh out the implications of the things that he's come up with in 60 or so different fields. So medicine is one field. The law is another field. Politics is a third. So you get the idea. 60 different fields are being impacted by his thinking. So it's, I think, worth a look. And he has a great deal to say about this kind of arc of ascent. So that's why I'm interested in him.
Yeah.
Great.
It's a different angle.
Yeah. It'll be very interesting.
We'll be
gotten
sort of going full circle too.
Thank you.
Well, I think I'm going to spend time praying for Wayne in the next few days, and maybe Bob, you can keep us up to date with what's happening. And
Okay, I will. Yeah. Thank you.
Uh, please tell Wayne how much we
care for him.
Okay, I will. I will. He'll really appreciate that.
Is he
Thank
in
you.
the hospital right now, Bob?
No, no, he's just in his little house, his little room.
Oh,
He
boy.
can't. They can't take him to a hospital. He's just lying in bed in his apartment there. In his little house, I should say.
And has a doctor been to see him or not?
Yeah, a doctor came a couple of nights ago, and she's the one who instituted the IV. With the lot of what is it, Bonnie?
Antibiotics.
Antibiotics, I guess. Yeah.
Well, if he's going to Malakut, it looks a lot better than what I'm looking at down here in Nasut.
Oh,
yeah.
Don't complain. You
Not
get
a complaint. It's what we have to look forward to.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Okay, guys.
Thank you.
Well, Mark,
Good
take care of yourself.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Nice.
Aloha.